and welcome to another live episode of the Leveraging AI podcast, the podcast that shares practical, ethical ways to leverage AI to improve efficiency, grow your business, and advance your career. This is Isar Meitis, your host, and if you are listening to this podcast, it means you are consuming content that somebody else generates, in this particular case, me. But generating content in general is a great way to build an audience and create relationships, and if you nurture these relationships and you continuously provide them value, it will over time lead to business. I've been a big believer in that for many years when I worked for large companies and now when I'm doing my thing right now on my own. But either way, creating valuable content that really helps a specific audience, that is your target audience, is a great way to grow your business. However, knowing exactly what to post and how you should post it is not that easy. Many organizations and many people have been running very, very fast on the content treadmill, but going nowhere because they're not necessarily sharing content that helps their target audience in a meaningful way. But to do that properly, it's actually a lot of work, right? You got to do research and figure out what's actually connecting with these people. You got to do research and figure out what's trending right now and what they might be interested in. You got to then analyze that content and figure out which components they might be interested in. And only then you need to start generating the content and generating the images and all. It's a lot of work. And so doing that manually is something that many companies and definitely individuals are not doing, or at least not doing effectively. However, AI is a great platform that knows how to do all these things. It knows how to do research. It knows how to analyze data. It knows how to create content. So if you can take each and every one of these components with the right prompts and then combine them together into a single automated process, you can create an incredibly effective content machine, which is exactly what we're going to show you how to do today. Now, our guest today, Nadia Privalikhina, is an expert in AI automation. She's been building AI automations for multiple clients in the past few years. Now, her background is being a software engineer, which means she definitely understands the technical side and how to build things that flow effectively with minimal interference and issues. But she also spent a while running an e-commerce business, which means she definitely understands what motivates people to buy and how to connect with them in order to drive them to take actions, which this combination makes her the perfect person to show us exactly how to do this process. Now, when I saw her post about this on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my God, this is absolutely brilliant. I need to bring her on the show. So here we are. And I'm personally very excited for this episode. I know it's pure gold. Again, you will see how to do all the things we've just talked about in an automated way, leveraging AI together with automation capabilities. And so Nadia, welcome to Leveraging AI.
In the next few years, AI technology will change our world dramatically. Whether you are a business executive trying to catapult your business forward, or just somebody who refuses to be left behind and want to advance your career, this is the show for you. I'm your host, Isar Meitis, a serial entrepreneur and an AI enthusiast. You'll hear invaluable practical tips from innovative business leaders, AI practitioners, and some of the brightest AI minds in our world today on how you can leverage AI in ethical ways to advance your career and grow your business.
Thank you so much, Isar, for such a nice introduction. Today, we are going to talk about how to create YouTube thumbnails specifically. That is the use case that we are covering, but I believe the same concept can be applied to different industries and different types of content.
The automation that Nadia showed is how to take what's working for other people on LinkedIn, combine it with the stuff that you want to include in your thumbnails, and then create thumbnails on the fly for your content. The same thing can be broadened to anything that you want to create by researching, analyzing, and then creating based on the same exact parameters. You'll see it feels like magic once you'll see the results. For all of you who are joining us live, whether you are joining us live on LinkedIn or whether you are joining us live on the Zoom call, then feel free to ask any questions. First of all, introduce yourself right now in the chat. Say where you're from, say who you work for, send your LinkedIn link if you are on the Zoom chat so other people can connect with you. And tell us in 2 words what is your biggest interest in this particular use case. And if you're not here with us live, the question is, why aren't you here with us live? We do this every single Thursday, noon Eastern time. We have amazing people like Nadia that are going to share exactly how to do different use cases. And then you can ask questions, which is the last thing that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to give it back to Nadia. Feel free to ask questions in the chat on LinkedIn or in the Zoom chat, and I will bring it up to Nadia, and we're going to answer your questions. With that, Nadia, the stage is yours. Walk us through your magic.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that I will share my screen because it is the best
Yes.
way to showcase what we are going to talk about.
For those
And
of you
so
who don't see the screen, by the way, because you're listening to the podcast after the fact, then we're going to explain everything that's on the screen so you can follow us as long, despite the fact that you're driving or walking your dog or on the treadmill or whatever it is that you're doing. However, if you have the opportunity to also watch the YouTube, then that's another great benefit because you can see afterwards what we've done.
Okay, and right now I'm sharing the screen with my LinkedIn post that attracted that attention. And what happened is that I am part of Liam Sotley private group where we learn how to use AI and how to sell AI services to businesses. But actually, Liam runs a big channel with more than 500,000 subscribers. And one of the problems that he faced is that they need to constantly create thumbnails. They do research, they create those different variations, and then post those variations.
Yeah.
So there was a hackathon, and I created a system. I will quickly run through it right now. But here you can see the first examples of what types of thumbnails the system produced. And yeah, I haven't mentioned that I won that hackathon. I took the first place with those images. And since then, a lot of people reached out saying that those are amazing, because if you don't know how Liam looks, he looks exactly like those images that I'm sharing right now. To those who are listening, you have to believe
And that
me
was pre Nano Banana, right? So now
yes,
this is
exactly.
probably even easier.
I would still say that character consistency can be a problem. So I tried after Nano Banana release to do the same with it, but the character consistency is still a problem. So I will tell you how I approached this problem and how
Awesome.
I solved it.
So again,
So
those of you not seeing, there are multiple thumbnails with a very clear style. So they have these kind of like beige background or kind of like off-white background with graphics that are all look the same as far as like sketches and images of the person in multiple directions and angles, but his face is in most of these thumbnails, and they look very consistent from a style perspective, and they look highly professional, and yet no person has created them, which is the whole magic here.
and maybe even share a few of examples a little bit closer. So here are those finished thumbnails and how they
Amazing.
Okay. Let me exit this screen. And now I will tell you how I approach this problem and how you can do this. So the
Awesome. Just a
first,
quick question. How long was the hackathon? Like, how much time did you have to work on this?
well, in theory, we had almost 1 month, but as because I have my clients and like I believe everyone else faced the same problem, so we finished it in around 3 or 4 days.
Oh,
So
wow.
only,
Okay, cool.
yeah, okay. And now I will share, so to prepare this and how would you create a thumbnail or any other content, you would first want to understand what works and what works for others. And this is what I also did. So now you can see on the screen, I believe this will give it a moment and it will display the thumbnails. I scraped all the thumbnails from multiple creators on YouTube and created my database of winning thumbnails. And later, initially, my idea was to analyze those thumbnails because you have models that can transform visuals into text, for example. And then my idea was to train, to fine-tune a model. But actually, it didn't work, even though I used that fine-tuning for my own LinkedIn content.
Interesting.
But yeah, but in this case with thumbnails, for some reason, it didn't work. So what I ended up doing is I scraped multiple channels. Obviously, there is still some human work. I had to pick those channels on my own. And then the system could, let me show you what is going behind the scenes of that scraping part. So now I'm sharing my N10 workflow. It is super easy and quick. And someone mentioned that it's probably not legal to scrape YouTube, but actually YouTube gives you quite a lot of data points, including thumbnails that you can get absolutely legally with some limitations. So first I set the channels that I want to monitor. And then for each of those channels, I get all of the videos from the past year for them. And you can see
When you're saying
here
get the video, you're getting the thumbnail and the description?
let me show you what we have here. We can YouTube provides a lot of information about those videos. So you can see we have title, we have channel, name, here is somewhere description, and then thumbnails. Yeah, thumbnails are here.
And this
There are
and this
multiple
node in
versions.
NA10 is just that's what it does. It just grabs information from specific channels.
Yes. So it takes a channel ID, and I say that I want to get all the data from past year in this
Yeah.
example. And then I get all of that video. So it found, I believe I entered around 10 channels, and almost every channel posted more than 100 videos. So I got all of those 100 videos for each channel, which makes it up to 1,000 items in this case.
Okay.
And later, obviously, want to filter them. And yeah, there is another data point I will not be sharing today because it will expose my API key. But there is another option to get more stats about that videos, views count, and comments, and whatever you want. I would say there is still a lot of information that can be.
And that's from what tool did you use that? Is that like an
It
Apify?
is
Because it's
no, it is also YouTube's
oh,
official
so it's YouTube's own
API.
resources. Okay, cool.
Yes, yeah. Anytime doesn't give you an option to list all of those. So in this
Yeah.
case, I
So
used
to
just
explain to
HTTP
people how
model.
these work, so all these tools work the same, whether you're using NA10 or Make or Zapier or any other. They, in all their tools, they don't expose every single function of the API that exists in the tools they connect to, in this particular case, YouTube, which means you can connect to the simple node and it will give you several functions that you can do in the node, but you can use an HTTP call, which is very, very easy, and you don't have to know how to code. You just have to get the documentation and drop it into your favorite large language model and say, I want to connect to that with an HTTP call, and I want to find that information, and it will give you the code, and you can drop it here on NA10, and then you can call the rest of the functions that do not exist and was not pre-built into the tool itself.
Awesome explanation. Thank you so much for that. And after we get that information, in my case, I wanted to filter out short form videos, but for some people, it may be the opposite case. So they would want to see what's trending for short form videos. And I had to use a little bit of code for that, but I believe that it's also possible to do without code. But because I have technical background, for me, it was easier to use code in this case. And then I just filter out short videos that are shorter than 2 minutes. And after that, I get also, because we scraped all the videos from the past year, we can get data about what is the average view for this specific channel and what is their average likes rate. And this will help us to identify what are the outliers for this channel.
Oh, cool.
So in my
I see where this is going.
yeah, it's not that simple. I mean, it is quite simple, but you need to have your own strategy. This is where the human part comes in. And so, yeah, we get the average views per hour for this channel and average likes per video. And then this information helps us to identify which videos are good and which videos are not that good. And after that, I use that information and save it to my database. I will just...
And again, to explain to people, when you say database, people are like, oh my God, I don't know any databases. It just saves information to Airtable. And those of you who haven't used Airtable, Airtable is like Excel with better and easier to use user interface, right? So it allows you to do more filtering and control more the look and feel and add images. Like you see in the example here, you see all the thumbnails from all the different channels that this process has brought, but it's saved into Airtable, which is a very user-friendly tool. You don't need to know how to run databases or set them up or so on. You literally go to Airtable, create a new space in Airtable, define what you want to have in it. Is it images and what's going to be the columns and what fields do you want in it? And then you just can feed that from whatever source, in this particular case, from NA10.
Absolutely. I have non-technical clients who are quite who are navigating Airtable very easily.
Yeah.
And so I save those thumbnails, and then I have one more workflow that actually analyzes those thumbnails. So I use an agent in this case, but why I use agent, maybe it is not so specific, and you can use, let's say, your OpenAI can analyze what is on that image. But in my case, I decided that I will do this with agents. It's just a small limitation of an item that I found for what I wanted to use, that I had to pass the image and use an agent for that. So my agent analyzes those thumbnails and saves them to an Airtable.
Can you explain what exactly it analyzes? Like, what is it looking for?
Okay, let me see. So the prompt says that you are a world-class YouTube strategist with attention to detail. You live and breathe YouTube content marketing strategy packaging and are skilled at creating convenient packaging for high-performing YouTube videos. You always output valid JSON. This is one trick that we just needed for a structured output from this tool, but it is not mandatory, I would say, in this specific case. And then I give an additional extended prompt where I say that this agent will be given a YouTube video that performed well. And okay, I also feed it with a transcript, title and thumbnail. And the mission of this agent is to deconstruct why this thumbnail works for the video and identify the thumbnail archetype. And this
Awesome.
way,
Before you close this, again, to people, so what is JSON and how does it work? So JSON is a very simple coding language that basically describes the data as if it is a table. So it tells you which fields they are and what values they can have. And the benefit of using JSON is that more or less every tool out there knows how to use it. And so if you export and or import that, then you get consistent results because it's going to come in a very well-defined format. And again, you don't need to know what it is. You can go to whichever tool and say, I need a JSON that will give me these parameters, and it will write the code for you and it can paste it in here. The benefit of that, once the data gets into an automation tool like N8N or Make or whatever, you can identify each and every one of the fields. You can map them to the columns in the table in Airtable and so on. So it just gives you a structured output versus just free text.
Exactly. And maybe I will, okay, let's move on. And so this system could look at all the thumbnails and transform them into text representation. And then I save that information again to Airtable. And so by the end of that second workflow, what I have is a lot of structured data. I have titles of highly performing videos, channel names, summary, and then thumbnail description. And for thumbnail description, it says what is in the background, what is the text on that thumbnail, and a few other things, I believe, yeah, what is on the foreground. And those are the main components. And
so you're
why
basically
I
deconstructing the thumbnail
exactly.
into its
Yes.
various components. And because these are all the top performing videos from the specific channels, then that hints that these are solid descriptions and or thumbnails or a combination of the two, which gives you hints to what you need to do in order to create successful ones yourself.
Yes. Now we are just preparing the data for the future automation.
Awesome.
And this is the data preparation step. What we do now, Airtable allows you to export that data. I don't remember where it is, but you can actually export all the table into a CSV file. And what we do next, and you can do it with any types of content. I did the same with LinkedIn content. So you export it. And then in my case, I went to Google AI Studio, or you can go to Gemini, but Google AI Studio is a similar version. So it is just Gemini for developers, where you can safely test your ideas and experiment with that model and how it works. So what I did is I went to this Google AI Studio and I exported and I gave it that CSV file with description of best performing videos alongside with the thumbnails, because we have already transformed the visual thumbnails into text. And so Gemini can work now with that text. And why Gemini? Because it has a huge context window. It has more than 1 million token a context window, which means that you can basically feed it with, in my case, there was around 100 videos, but you can potentially give it 2,000 videos for analysis. And so after I give it this CSV file, I instructed that you now see top performing thumbnails for videos, their description, explanation, and so on. And your mission now is to generate a prompt for an LLM. This is also a secret trick that I use. I always ask Gemini to create prompts for me because it knows how to create prompts better than me. And also I give it a link to the prompting guide for Gemini. Google publishes those prompting guides. They are officially available. So I gave this prompting guide along with the CSV file. And now what Gemini did on this step is that it came up with a good prompt. It now created a structured prompt with a persona. So again, it says that you are a world-class YouTube strategist, and it is not my prompt already here. This is what Gemini created. And it created the task. So task is to analyze and provide video title and summary and generate, in this case, in the context, I mentioned that I want to generate based on a title of the video and transcription of the video, I want to generate those thumbnails. And so all that information came into the prompt. And later I made a few modifications to inject the branding guidelines that I wanted it to have. But the structure is the same. I would just iterate upon the first version and ask to add a few more components to it. Okay, I believe this is the second one. Yeah, I ask it to deconstruct and reverse engineer how I can get a clear description of a thumbnail based on title and transcript. And I used one of those prompts later on in Insights and Automation.
So the prompt, again, just to understand what it does, it takes all the inputs from the CSV file that was created based on all the data that we collected previously, and now it gets an input for a new video.
I ask it now to create prompt for basically itself and say that it will be given, yes, title and transcription of the video.
And it needs to then define what the exact what the exact thumbnail needs to be based on the best practices that it learned from all the previous material, combining it with the new need for the new video.
Something like that, yes.
Okay.
And then
is there a section for like brand guidelines and something like that? Because again, we saw everything was perfectly branded when you showed us.
Yes, later I injected it manually. Or,
got it. So,
yes,
so you added manually
manually
a segment about the branding.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And after this step, I have a prompt that I can use. But let's go back to this is now on the screen. You see the final automation that I created. It starts with a form. So we need to somehow instruct the system that, hey, this is our title and hey, this is what is our video about. And so it starts with a form where we fill that information. And later it can summarize the transcript if it's needed. And then I use that exact prompt from Gemini. It has this persona about world-class YouTube thumbnail designer and task and instructions and so on. And then it comes up with a few concepts. We don't want to have only one thumbnail because most of the channels test multiple thumbnails. And we want this system to create multiple concepts. So it comes up with a few concepts. And it is based on concept archetypes and so on. And it outputs visual descriptions, what should be in the background, what should be the primary subject, is it a person or is it just an object which fits this video, and what are the elements, if there are some arrows or additional, I don't know, a pile of money or something to evoke some emotions, and then text elements. This is all what we need to almost all what we need to generate and visualize those concepts. But what else do we need? If it is a personal brand, then we obviously want to have a person on those thumbnails. And if you don't know, then OpenAI has this image model, which allows you to reference images. So now we have Nano Banana. Before we didn't have it, but still OpenAI has that possibility to reference not only one image, but multiple images. And it also can be done via API, which means that it can be automated.
Yep.
Now on the screen, you see one of the examples that OpenAI provides. There are 4 objects, and then if you give it a prompt to compile those objects into one image, then it combines all of them and puts them into one image. And we use a similar approach with thumbnails.
Okay.
So what I did here is I used a few thumbnail examples from the channel. Okay, let me open it. So here is one example, and there are a few more. So now I use those 3 examples, and then there are just a few supporting blocks. But later I ask an OpenAI model. So I reference those images, multiple 3 images, and then I say that again that it is an expert YouTube art director and a master of photorealistic concepts executions using generative AI. Its sole mission is to create a single masterpiece level YouTube thumbnail based on the detailed concept provided below. You must perfectly fuse the visual style guide and the perfect and specific concept into one cohesive, hyper-realistic image, and so on. And here I also give it additional references. So I mentioned that the images that I provided are the reference of a creator of this channel. And I also give additional styling guidelines right here in the prompt. So we give styling guidelines into multiple places because the first place, it affects the layout of the image, and in the second place, when we actually generate that image, then
Yeah.
styling guidelines affect how it looks and what colors
Yeah.
it uses. And so let's actually view. So this is one image, another input image, and then we give it a concept. And finally, I will not show it right here, but let's go here. Okay, this is,
So
there
these
are a
are,
few
so again, what you're
examples.
not seeing is that basically what this step does in the automation is it takes basically everything we prepared so far, but mostly it has a prompt on exactly what to include in several different variations of the thumbnail. So it takes these, as Nadia called them, archetypes of different what works basically. So it's going to generate several different versions to use. It's using images from previous thumbnails to get a visual reference of the brand guidelines as well as the look of the person. And then it combines all of that into outputs. So every time you run this, you're going to get X, I don't know how many, three, four different options for thumbnails that are already aligned with the brand, that already has the person, the text, the background, the supporting graphics, whatever needs to be in there, already in the image.
Yeah, exactly. So we first distilled what is working into a prompt, then that prompt created a few variations, a few text representations of variations, and then we converted that text into an actual image together with a few reference images that we use them only to reference face of a creator that should be on the thumbnail. But if you are watching it, you see that the final images, they are not perfect. So even though we give ChatGPT, the model behind ChatGPT, reference images, it doesn't preserve that character so well. And that is why we need additional steps. And anyway, this image is not in the proper format and so on. So we want to do the face swap, and face swap was one of the hardest things to figure out. But what we found is that there is this flux context model. You probably know about it. Before Nano Banana, flux context was one of the best models for visual editing. And with it, you can modify some text on an existing image. You can transform that image into a different style. And one good thing about it is that you can actually create a fine-tuned version of this flux context. And what it allows to do, let's say we have an image with not a perfect face. Let's say we have this image, and we want to have an image with an accurate face. So we would train a model that has an input image with someone else's face, and the final image would be the face that we want to see. And in this way, we can later on run that fine-tuned model on the images that our ChatGPT model produced. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, so
Maybe
I'll read. Let me explain this in a minute. So first of all, Flux is an open source model that generates images and can edit images. Probably the best open source model that there is out there right now. They've been around for a while, and they became extremely like they created a really big buzz because it was really easy to train them. They're called Flux LoRa's, and you can literally just take. It's a relatively simple process. Many tools allow you to do it out of the box, but you can just upload multiple images that are examples of either how you want the image to be, or like Nadia said, examples of before and after. This is my before, this is my after, this is my before, this is my after, this is my before, this is my after. You load as many of these as possible, and then, or not as many as possible. Like you need just a reasonable amount. Like one or two is not enough, but 15 to 20 is definitely enough. And then what you can do is if you have a before and after, all the afters showing the correct face, then it learns how to do that. And then you give it a before image and it knows how to change it to an after image. I actually haven't seen anybody use it for this kind of use case. So I found that you're doing absolutely brilliant. I think this is so freaking cool.
Thank you. Because it appeared not so long ago, around a month or two ago, I didn't find many tutorials that talk about it. So it was quite challenging to find an
To
actual,
figure it out on your own.
yes. And here you can see one example. So this was the input image, and the face here is what ChatGPT produced. It is quite good, but still the face is not the face of the person that we want to see. And after running this model, it produced a much more familiar face to
Do you
the face
have,
that
so
we
just as a
expected.
question for the audience, is there do you also train it just on the face separately, or all the images are just before and after with him with a good image and a bad image?
So you need to have, obviously, you need to have a photo shoot or existing thumbnails. You can take them from the database, from the initial steps when you scrape those thumbnails, you can use them as a final image. The problem here is to create the initial image, something that
to create the before
yes,
images. So how did
yes,
you? That was my
exactly.
next question. So
You can
again,
actually use
to
the
explain
same.
my question, in the data set, when you're training it, you need a good image, which, okay, you have the guy's YouTube channel, you have his existing his existing thumbnails. These are easy. But how do you get the one that is not his face? You have to kind of like destroy or ruin the good
Yeah.
images in order to do that. How do you do that?
The old way would be to use a Photoshop. The new way is to use the exact same model, Flux Context LoRa, or not LoRa, just Flux Context, or now you can use Nano Banana. You would give this model the final image and ask it to come up with another, just swap the face with someone else, or
Oh, I
replace
see
the
what you're
face.
saying.
You see, yeah. And this way, your final image becomes your starting image for the training
Yeah,
data
yeah,
set.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And this is how it's
Perfect.
done. So we have, after this step, the thumbnails is almost perfect. The remaining steps are to just resize it to fit YouTube's 9 by 16 or 16 by 9 ratio, and also to upscale that image. But that is quite
So
easy, and
two
there are a
questions
lot of
about this. The resizing is done with what tool?
resizing. Let me see. Okay, because what ChatGPT model, what OpenAI image model produces is 3 by 2 size image, and we don't want to lose some of the top, how to explain it, top and bottom pixels on the image. That is why what I use is outpainting, and you can use other models for outpainting. What the platform that I used for Flux training is called Fell.ai, and it hosts a lot of visual models as well. So you would go there and just find a model that that can do outpainting. I used, what did I use? I used some ideogram for outpainting.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And then I also found a model for upscaling.
Which one did you use for
That
upscale? That's another interesting one.
that was a basic model from Fal.ai. I
Got
don't
it.
even remember its name. It's not something that people talk about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are, I actually have one or two very good open source ones that do a very good job in upscaling. So I'm always curious to
Yeah,
see what people are
you
using.
can you can do it definitely on your local machine, even if
No,
you are
I'm
not.
running it on
Okay.
Fal and I'm paying them either that or
Okay.
Replit or one of those. Like it's running somewhere. It doesn't run
Yes.
on my computer,
Mm-hmm.
but
I see.
very, very cool. So
And this is the
I want to,
final image now, I see. Yeah.
yeah, I want to run through a quick recap so people understand of the entire process, and then I will see if there's any question. So first of all, there's a question: how long did it take for this process to take developed? So we talked about this, Gwyn, in the beginning. Maybe you missed that. It took a few days to create this thing, and I'm sure while doing other stuff. So I assume you didn't just sit and do this for a few days. I'm sure you have other
Yeah.
stuff to do other than developing the automation. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, that's true. I spent a few nights
Yeah.
developing it.
Yeah. Okay. So probably overall from working hours, we're talking, I don't know, 10 to 15 hours ish.
Maybe a little bit more than that.
Maybe a little bit
My
more than
nights were
that. Okay,
long. Yeah.
cool. Long nights, a few
Yes,
long
long
nights.
nights.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. So let's do a quick recap of what this entire process does and why is it so amazing. And then I'm going to mention a little bit how you can generalize it. The way it starts is it starts with research, right? So Nadia started manually saying, okay, who has successful YouTube channels? Because that's already going to be a good place to start. And she randomly picked who have successful YouTube channels. And then she used inside of N8N a scraper to bring all the thumbnails of their information. And then she used another call to YouTube to get additional information, such as how many views they have, which is a critical aspect to the next step. And then the next step was filtering only the ones that are positive outliers, right? So if the average person has 10,000 views to each episode, some episodes suddenly have 100,000, which means it caught people's attention. And by the way, the numbers, the actual absolute numbers don't matter. Like if the regular view is 500 and then suddenly you have something with 3,000, that's a good outlier. So then not only you're starting with people who know what they're doing because their channels are doing well, you're picking the ones that were really doing well from that channel, which means either the description or the thumbnail or the topic, something in there was working very, very well. And we use that as a way to train the AI on what is working from a thumbnail, description, title perspective on LinkedIn. So that just sets the stage, that builds the machine. Then the other half is saying, okay, I want to create a new YouTube video about topic X. What should I put in the description? What should be the thumbnail? What should be written on the thumbnail? And so on. And so Nadia asked Gemini to create a prompt on how to do that process. She used that prompt in the process. And what that prompt generates is it knows how to take the following inputs. It takes the output of the previous step, what is working and what's not working, best practices, and it's getting the input from the user on what the topic of the new podcast is, and it generates a prompt on how to create basically a very detailed description of the thumbnail. Then that gets fed into an image generation tool that actually generates the actual thumbnail. Then the next step actually swaps the person's face to a better version of that face of the person using a trained AI model from FAL. So using Flux Context. Flux, again, is an open source model that you can train very easily just by uploading examples to it. And then that makes the face better. Then the final step was to get the right aspect ratio and the right resolution, because in many cases, the image generation tools generate really relatively low resolution images, and in standard outputs as far as aspect ratios. Some of them actually know how to generate the image in the correct aspect ratio to begin with, and some of them don't. So if you found one that gives you the right quality of thumbnails, but not necessarily the right aspect ratio, then you can then change that as well. And again, just to dive a little deeper, instead of cropping the image, which means you lose something and you never know what you're losing because you're not creating the thumbnails on your own, Nadia did it the other way around. She used outpainting, which basically generates new pixels around the image in order to extend it to whatever the aspect ratio needs to be. Again, absolutely mind-blowing and brilliant. I'm not surprised you won first place. So there's a question, it's a general question, but I think it's a good question to add to this. They're asking, are you using the cloud NA10 or you self-host NA10?
I self-host on it in the cloud, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not hosting it locally.
Yeah. So to explain the question to those of you who are listening, you can go to na10.com and just sign up and then use it like any other software, right? And then you're going to pay for usage. So the more automations you run, the more money it's going to cost you. Option number two, na10 is an open source model. You can go and install it wherever you want, like on a third-party cloud, which is the way I run it. I run it on a hosting platform called Railway. I think most people who use na10 a lot host it somewhere and not use na10.com. It gives you several different benefits. Benefit number one is money. Like for the same cost of hosting, I'm paying $6 a month. I can run as many automations as I want. It doesn't matter. So that's a big benefit. The other big benefit is from a data security perspective. The data doesn't go to a third-party server where you don't know where na10 runs their data. It just stays on your server. And if you run it on a local machine, then 100% the data doesn't go anywhere because it just stays on your machine. So these are the two big benefits of running it this way. It sounds fancy, like how I don't even know what open source is, and I don't know how to host something on a third-party server. Again, I just was looking for the easiest way to do this. The easiest way I found is Railway. There's a drop-down menu, say create an na10 instance for me. You click go, and that's it, and you have one. So the knowledge you need is exactly zero, and you can have as many instances of na10 as you want.
I'm also using Railway. I just wanted to add that when you work with images and videos, then your server will consume a lot of memory. So you need to also keep it in mind. And because I automate those images and videos quite frequently, then my usage cost goes up.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't go up with usage. It goes up once to the level you need, and then you can run it 1,000 times. And it's not going to cost you significantly more money, right?
I mean, you need to keep an eye on, because n8n stores your executions.
Yes.
And when you create multiple images or videos, then those executions are hosted for 30 days. They stay.
So do you have a step that then deletes them at the end?
No.
You do not. Yeah. Because that's an interesting thing I'm doing in other automations. Now we're drifting a little bit, but in some of my automations, like in cases where I upload information to, let's say, vector stores of a custom GPT, then the final step of the automation goes and deletes the file. After I already have the output that I wanted, I go and delete the memory, because otherwise, again, you got to start accumulating more and more stuff. But okay, so Nadia, this was absolutely amazing. Again, this is such a brilliant use case. And now I said I will generalize it for a minute. Think about what we've learned today from Nadia. We've learned how to research and scrape data to learn something about it. We learned how to filter it to find only the stuff that is relevant and that is the best performing. We learned how to turn that into a prompt that can generate new variations of the winning concepts. And then we've learned how to apply that in order to create both text and graphics that will mimic the successful thing. You can take that to anything from ads to posts to post on social media to blog posts, like literally any content that you want to generate can follow the same exact process that Nadia was showing. And then all you need is some basic, well, not basic. You need solid NA10 skills to put it all together. But once you put it together once, you have a machine that can do it day in, day out, nonstop, which makes it really brilliant. This was amazing. Thank you so much. If people want to follow you, connect with you, work with you, learn from you, what are the best ways to do that?
Thank you, Sarah, so much for outlining how this all works, because you explained it much better than me. I feel I'm more on the technical side. Anyway, for people to find me, I am active on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Nadia Privalikhina. And I also active on YouTube. I post long NA10 tutorials about video and image generation as well. It is Nadia AI Insiders.
Awesome. And I want to thank everybody who joined us live, both on LinkedIn and on Zoom. I know you have other stuff that you can do on Thursdays at noon Eastern. And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you asking questions and introducing yourself and chatting in the chat. So thanks, everyone. For those of you who are listening to this after the fact, come join us next Thursday. It's noon Eastern every Thursday. You can join us either on Zoom or on LinkedIn, and we share the magic, right? It's brilliant people like Nadia who's going to tell you exactly how to do really, really cool stuff with AI that you can start implementing immediately afterwards. That's it, everybody. Have an awesome rest of your day.